core abilities. So we discussed seals in the previous section. Judgments is how we apply those seals to the boss. So Judgment by default is on a 10-second cooldown. Really easy to use, so long as you have a seal on you, you can judge it. Generally, we're using this on cooldown. It's one of our 3 big abilities that we use as part of our core rotation. 10-second cooldown, super easy to use. As soon as you use it, you want to get the seal up that you want to use next at the earliest convenience. As a Prot Paladin, we always want to have a seal on us. So when you do judge, it consumes the seal that you currently have on. So you want to reapply it as soon as you can. Now, a thing to note is Judgment is not on the GCD. If you're brand new to WoW, GCD is when all your numbers go around as so. So Judgment doesn't trigger that, so you can actually macro in a Judgment and reapplication of Seal of Righteousness. Okay, speaking of Consecrate, our next ability. This is an ability that AoE is the floor underneath us. It does 512 damage by default and scales extremely well with spell power. We'll discuss coefficients in a future video as that's a bit more in depth, but Consecrate is your #1 AoE ability and probably the second reason why people love Prot Paladins the most. So Holy Shield is our main defensive ability. It is going to increase your chance to block by 30% for 10 seconds. Talented, which it should be, this is going to have 8 charges, so it's going to get consumed each time you block. These 3 abilities make up the core Paladin gameplay. So judging the seals and reapplying them. You've got the Consecrate going down on the floor for the AoE threat, and then you've got your Holy Shield as your defensive. A couple more abilities that fall into a core rotation would be Exorcism when you're fighting undead or demon mobs. So this is a big burst threat, single target every 15 seconds. Works off the spell hit table, so it does have a 16% chance to miss by default, but that's something we'll fix with gear down the line. Really good, and a lot of paladins forget this exists when they're tanking undead or demons. It is what makes us so fantastic in the end game when most things that we're fighting are undead and demons, and you really feel the difference between fighting a humanoid where you can't use exorcism and a demon where you can. The other main ability that makes us tick and keeps us nice and healthy is Spiritual Attunement. So this is an ability that's going to recharge your mana based on how much you heal. Now, this is set and forget. You don't need to cast it. It's a passive that's just always running there. You get 10% mana back based on what you healed. And one interaction to think with this is if you're tanking easier content as you start to get more geared and you find yourself drinking a lot, it's worth designing a set that lets you take a steady stream of damage, and that's going to keep restocking your mana, especially if your healer's geared and can cope with it. One of the biggest things I see new paladins do is not considering the mana back from Spiritual Attunement, and that's what's going to help you set the pace of the dungeon and make people look at you and be like, okay, cool, this tank is really good, he's not wasting mana, we're cruising. Generally, it's because you've set a setup for Spiritual Attunement and you're getting hit for enough in the dungeon. Okay, so we've spoken about wings in the previous section, so let's cover what they are. Avenging Wrath, or commonly known wings, as Pallies call it. So this is going to increase your damage caused by 30% for 20 seconds. It's really important that you use a trinket or sync something up with this to maximize your burst threat. So once you've used this ability, you cause forbearance, and that's going to prevent you from bubbling, which is a Divine Shield, Divine Protection, or Blessing of Protection. So you need to choose, do you need a defensive bubble or do you need an offensive wings? Most of the time, the correct answer is going to be wings, especially on the pull. And you should aim to use this whenever you're starting a fresh boss fight. I would recommend as well, when you have your wings up, you don't want to be doing things like judging Seal of Wisdom. You want to stick to Seal of Righteousness because you want to maximize that 30% extra damage, get the biggest burst threat during that 20 seconds. And once it subsides, you can then take the time to judge Blessing of Wisdom or whatever else you're on. So the final ability we're going to take a look at in the core rotation is Avenger's Shield. So this is going to be your main opening ability. It has a cast time, so you generally don't want to use it once you're in combat with the mobs. Some people choose to skip it for the Sanctuary build that we spoke about earlier. We'll go over that in talents. As a fresh pally, you are going to pick this up. It is so good for pulling, pacing dungeons, and getting that early burst threat, which will help you feel a lot more confident in your pulls. So it throws your shield at 3 targets, it bounces and it dazes them. Nice burst threat. Down the line, we do drop this in some builds, but have fun when you're leveling with it. It's a great time. Situational abilities. All right, so we've got a couple more blessings to look at. Now these are more situational ones. So the first is Blessing of Sacrifice. So place the blessing on the party member, transferring 104 damage taken per hit to the caster, last 30 seconds. So this has a 30-second cooldown, which means you can only have it on one target at a time. So 104 damage transferred to you doesn't feel that amazing when you consider this will knock off the original blessing that you put on that person. However, the one use case for this that I absolutely love So there's a lot of abilities in this game that incapacitate you, and a lot of those abilities will break on damage taken. So the first instance of this you'll probably see would be Mana Tombs. There's a mob in there that gouges. Once you get gouged, you drop Temporary Threat. Those mobs are then going to run over and clap the rest of your party. So what you'd do, you'd look for the person who's on second threat and you'd cast Blessing of Sacrifice on them. When you get gouged, the mobs are then going to turn to second threat. They're going to hit him. He's going to take some damage, which is going to transfer 104 damage to you. And that damage is then going to break the incapacity. And you'd be back in control. Other examples of this would be Morose, also does a gouge. Maiden in Kara early on also does a Repentance that breaks on damage. And in Black Temple as well, there's some rogues on the way to Akama, which do a very similar thing. There's plenty other examples where you could use Blessing of Sacrifice to break yourself out. I've also had my Holy Paladin cast this on me when I'm AoE tanking and suck up a whole bunch of damage with me. You can use this with a bubble as well to take the damage from somebody, but then be immune to it. So really useful ability, great in PvP as well for protecting yourself against rogue saps, but that is Blessing of Sacrifice. Next one is Blessing of Protection, which you'll hear called Bop. It is one of the most iconic Paladin abilities. So a targeted party member is protected from all physical attacks for 10 seconds, but during that time they cannot attack or use physical abilities. This will also give them a temporary protection from the threat, providing that the mob that is hitting them is melee based. So a prime example of this would be you're doing a dungeon, you've got a warlock in the back who's absolutely blasting, he pulls off you, your taunt is on cooldown, you can put Blessing of Protection on him, and then that mob is going to come back to you and you're going to be able to pick up threat on it again. Could also be used to clear some debuffs. Case by case, some boss abilities can be bopped off, others cannot. Blood Boil is a prime example of this. You can reset his stack with your personal bubble, but you can't use a Blessing of Protection on it. The final one is Blessing of Freedom. This one's nice and simple, works very much like the other two. It's a temporary blessing and it's going to remove all movement impairing effects. So a good example of this to use would be in ZA. There's a mob that puts a net on you, which is electrified and it's going to do damage. So you can actually prevent that damage by freeing that person up and removing the net from them. So Blessing of Freedom. Divine Shield is another great Paladin ability. Protects the Paladin from all damage and spells for 12 seconds, but increases the time between your attacks by 100%. As Prot, we take a talent that reduces that time between attacks back to normal. This can be used in conjunction with a whole bunch of things. You can do what's called a bubble pull, where you run out inside your bubble, maybe get 3 packs of mobs. Now, when you're in your Divine Shield, caster mobs will try and cast on you. They'll realize they can't cast spells on you, and then they will come and try and hit you with the melee weapon. So a really great way to group caster mobs up. Something to note, though, is if you are doing a bubble pull and anybody in your party casts a spell or is too close to the mobs, you cannot hold any threat when you're inside a bubble. You can also use a macro to use this shield to remove hurtful effects from yourself. We'll go over that in the macros section in a future video. Make sure you're subbed if you haven't, guys. There's plenty more videos coming with great information. You can also combine it with Holy Wrath, which is an ability we're going to look at really soon. If you're doing an undead pull to run out, cast this bubble, Holy Wrath a bunch of mobs. If you're doing solo gameplay, you can cast this, you can bandage, you can cast this, you can heal yourself. It has a whole bunch of creative uses. I'm sure there's going to be more uses. Found out crazy things you can do with it. Super fun ability. Know when to use it. Make sure you communicate with your team, though, when you're using this ability to do a special pull. And have a bunch of fun with it. It's one of my favorite abilities. Oh, don't forget, if you're ever in trouble out in the world, you can cast Divine Shield and Hearthstone for a Bubble Hearth, which is one of the best Paladin things in the entire world. Pesky Rogue trying to gank you, Bubble Hearth. Pesky Mage trying to gank you, Bubble Hearth. Get out of there, jump back on your mount, off you go again. You don't have to die. I love it. Next ability, Lay on Hands. So this is going to drain your entire mana pool. It's going to heal you to your full health, and then it's going to restore 900 mana to your target. So if you use this on yourself, you'll end up with 900 mana. There have been times when my healer is so I've cast Lay on Hands on them to give them the 900 mana, and that's allowed them to continue healing for a little bit longer. Lay on Hands, 1 hour cooldown for us, use it sparingly, but it's better to lay and to not have needed it than to die with Lay on Hands still available. So one thing that a lot of pallies don't do is lay, and we don't have a whole bunch of defensive cooldowns. So if you find yourself in a spot where lay could be useful, you know, you see yourself on 20%, just push the button. Make sure it's on an easy to hit keybind that you can hit nice and easy. We'll go over keybinds in a future video, but lay in hands is amazing and one of my favorite paladin abilities. Redemption, so unlike a warrior tank, we can res other people. Super useful, bringing people back to life. Maybe the healer got clapped on a pull. Instead of running back, you can res that healer. Generally, when you're resing, you want to res people that can res first also. This is a staple of being a paladin, and make sure you help res when you can. On that same note about saving people's lives or bring them back from the dead, Divine Intervention. This is going to put somebody in an ability that completely protects them for 3 minutes. They can't move, they can't cast. However, mobs will reset if somebody is left alive in this ability. So say a pull is going horribly wrong, you've body pulled 2 extra packs, you know you're going to wipe. You could cast this on your healer. Everybody would then die, and then that healer could then res and reset your party. So something to know is when you cast Divine Intervention, you don't take any damage on your gear when you do die from using this. It does kill you to save that person, so use it sparingly, but it can be used to save a run back. Just a few more abilities now. Hammer of Wrath. So this is generally something we don't use as Prot Paladin. However, it does see some play once you get super comfortable. So it's half a second cast. It's going to reset your own swing timer. Scales quite well. You can only use it on enemies that have less than 20% health. So it's a kind of like our execute type ability. One thing you can do is have an enemy swing timer, and you can cast this in between the boss's swings to make sure that you don't get meleeed when you're casting this, with it only being half a second cast. Something that you can do at the very high end to keep up with the warriors when they're executing. Holy Wrath is something I mentioned a few abilities ago. So this is a 2-second cast on a 1-minute cooldown, and it throws out a series of holy bolts. It's going to attack everything only on undead and demon targets. This is generally best used on the pull in conjunction with a bubble, once you've communicated to your team that that's your intention and they know not to cast anything on the pull. Really nice burst threat. You can't use this when you're tanking for the most part because of spell pushback. You'll never get a cast off, but it's really nice for burst threat on the pull from time to time when you can get a setup for it. Turn Evil, very little use on this one. You can fear a demon or an undead mob. Example where this could come useful would be ZA. If you don't have enough CC on the second last boss, you could fear something for 20 seconds or you kill off the first mob and then get to it. I don't use this a lot, but good to know it exists. There are special use cases for it. Something that does see a lot of play is Cleanse. So Cleanse is a friendly target, removing 1 poison effect, 1 disease, and 1 magic effect. Generally in a dungeon, having the ability to cure poisons, diseases, and magic effects. If you have a druid healer, you're probably not going to have a magic dispel. You're going to have to do it yourself. I like to have this on a special thing called a mouse over macro, so I can leave my target focused. I can put my mouse over friendly nameplates and get rid of these effects on them. In dungeons, this gets used a lot more than raids when you're going to have 5 healers or 5 to 6 healers. Generally in a raid environment, they'll be doing it. As a paladin, we do have free GCDs, which you can use to cleanse. If you really want to shine as a great paladin tank, this is something that you should be doing. So Hammer of Justice or Hodge. So this is a 6-second stun on a 1-minute cooldown. We don't have an interrupt, so this is the only thing we have to really interrupt heals. So super useful. Use it as often as you can in dungeons. Use it as often as you can in dungeons. If you are doing a big pull early on in your first heroic, you can stop something from doing any damage for 6 seconds by getting a good stun on a non-kill target or a healer or someone that's going to stun you back. If there's mortal strikes going out, when you take that mortal strike, you can then stun to reduce the damage intake on you. You should be able to get at least 1 every single pull. And the last 2 abilities we're going to talk about, Flash of Light. So this is a quick heal that you can cast, 1.5 second cast time, smaller heal, as well as Holy Light, which is a 2.5 second cast, which is a bigger heal. Generally, you're never casting these when you're tanking, but it's good to know we have heals, especially for solo play. And that, guys, was my rundown of all the paladin abilities. The next videos I'm going to be doing are key bindings and macros. So if those videos are done, there'll be a link on the screen. Go click one, go watch it, go learn from there. If you're here super early, they'll be done soon. Hit that subscribe button so you get the notification, and I'll see you in the next one.